In this series of videos, I'm going to walk you through an example PPP lesson plan. PPP stands for Presentation, Practice, and Production. Those three stages will be covered in parts 2, 3, and 4 of this series. Here in part 1, I will give you an overview of the lesson, including the all-important objectives, language objectives, and I'll end by describing the warm-up, the first stage of the lesson plan proper. Before we look at the actual stages of the PPP lesson plan, we need to walk through the details of the lesson and the objectives. Our lesson plan template includes a lot of details before those stages, so let's take a look at those details for this particular lesson. First thing you'll notice, the level and number of students. We have 15 intermediate adults, so these are adults, they're at their intermediate stage. The lesson duration here is going to be 60 minutes from beginning to end. Our aims and objectives, this is really important, of course. By the end of the lesson, the students will be able to identify how the present perfect is used to communicate life experience, both via reading and listening, and use the present perfect to communicate their own life experience both orally and in writing. And so you note here we have language objectives, pretty simple, the grammar, the present perfect, and we also have skill objectives. They're going to be doing a little bit of all four of the skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And I think all good lessons do a little bit of all of those skills, even if they focus on one of them for the majority of the lesson. We have a couple of assumptions here. First one is that students have learned the past simple. I think that's really important. You wouldn't want to teach the present perfect before the students were comfortable with the past simple, and so we have that assumption. We also assume that these are adults. They've had some travel experience in the past because that's going to be the content for some of their speaking and writing. If we anticipate any problems, the first one would be that the students will want to use the past simple. One of the things we want to do in the lesson is help them differentiate between the past simple and the present perfect. That'll take more than one lesson, so if they're using the past simple a little bit, we'll be able to correct them. We also think the students might struggle to come up with some ideas in the production stage. That's always a possible problem, but I'll talk about that a little bit more when we cover the production stage in the video number 4. The materials for this are pretty simple. There's one grammar worksheet for the practice part 2, so I need to bring in 15 copies of that worksheet. And so now that we've gone over these details, we're ready to look at the actual stages of the lesson plan. Now we're ready to look at the first stage of our lesson that involves the students, and that is the warm-up. Because it's the first stage that involves the classroom and the students, it's the first thing on our lesson plan that has a time marker, and this particular warm-up is slotted for 6 minutes. A good warm-up stage seeks to get the students active. It seeks to get them using English communicatively, and it should do that in a way that is not very demanding for the students. We want it to be cognitively easy for them to do, and we want it to be linguistically something that they've already covered. We don't want for them to be challenged with new language. We want them to be reviewing or using language they already know. And this will help them switch their brain over from their first language into English. So for this particular lesson in the warm-up, the first part says, the teacher asks the students to think about the following questions. Right now, just think about them. What was your best vacation? Where did you go? What did you do there? And why was it the best? Why was it so great? And so then the teacher will model by telling their own best vacation story. And here I would kind of slowly share about my best vacation. I would give a few details. I would use the past simple and just tell about the things that I did, the things that I saw, and why it was so great, why I enjoyed it so much. And at this time they'll be listening to me, but they'll also be thinking about their own answer to this, how they can say it. And then next, the teacher tells the students to share their best vacation story with a partner. I'd give them 2 or 3 minutes to do that. You really want to do pairs. There can be a group of 3 if you have an odd number. After they share with each other and everyone has a chance to speak, the teacher elicits third-person feedback. And what that means is that I will randomly choose a few students, not every pair, but I'll choose a few people to share with the class what their partner said. I'm not going to ask them to repeat what they just told their partner, but I'm going to say, okay, student A, why don't you tell the class about student B's best vacation? And I do that every lesson. And so every lesson I have usually an easy speaking warmer. It can be a written warm-up. But at the end, I want some of the students to share just so that we establish a communicative classroom. And every time I have them talk in pairs as a warm-up, I always pick a couple of students to share what their partner said. So the students know when they come into the room, they're going to be asked to speak right away, and they're going to be expected to listen to their partner because they might have to share. And so I think this is a good warm-up for this lesson plan. In part 2, we will start to look at the next 2 stages of the lesson plan, which are the introduction and the first P, the presentation.